Okay, good evening. Let's close our eyes and bring ourselves here for the class. Start with the invocation. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahavityam Karavavahe Tejasvinavadhetamastu Ma Vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. That's it. So, last about spirituality, trying to avoid the jargons and trying to understand it in our everyday language. So that's what we try to do. So what is spirit and all that we saw, and then about setting our goal and aligning with the spiritual knowledge systems according to the goals and all that we saw in two classes. So you can go any day. So if you have thought about what we discussed in the last class, and if you have any questions, gray areas, doubts, what we discuss here with what you are exposed and what you learn from outside, from different schools or from different teachers, there may be some discrepancies or something that, a problem in mapping what to what, right? So if anything like that is there, if you had thought about it, we can begin the class with the questions today. And toward the end also, we can have a little bit of questions. So it is your questions that will keep the class alive and make it more purposeful and suitable for the need of the students. I can always, there are a lot of discourses. You can always keep giving discourses. I have already thought about, as usual, if you will not ask any question, I already thought about what to talk about. So that's not a problem for me. So I would like to open the floor for any questions that have been waiting these days in your head. Usually better to make a note. No? In these kind of spiritual related things, you make a note like a journal, then we can discuss them in this class. Anything under the sun. There is nothing called as a wrong question or a silly question or a stupid question. It's all right. Okay. So I wait for any question.
I have a question, G.
You have?
Yes.
Yes. Proceed.
My question, I have many, but the one question I have, I've been thinking is in relation to Pratipaksha Bhavanam. In particular, as it relates to brahmacharya, but I think it can be for any application of Pratipaksha Bhavanam. So what I have learned is Pratipaksha Bhavanam, and when some sinful thought arises or desire arises, to think the opposite, and in that way to use the mind to change the mind, is my understanding. The challenge I keep having, both in practice of that and in application, or practice and in conceptual understanding of the Pratipaksha Bhavanam, is if you use the mind to change the mind, but the problem is the mind is already is weak. So I come to yoga to, if you come to yoga to strengthen the mind, so the mind can become stronger or more disciplined or something, something like that. The mind is not in a position to sort of change itself, or to, let's say, some people are better at resisting certain temptations or pleasures or desires than others. So, and they're already better.
And the same person is better in with respect to some set of temptations than with respect to some other set of temptations.
Correct. Yes, correct. So I suppose I'm just asking if there's some struggle in applying the Pratipaksha Bhavanam for purposes, let's say, in my context, brahmacharya, for certain whatever pleasures that may be, food or music or the internet or whatever anything. What would you say, or how would you approach this problem? Is it necessary sometimes just to become almost like maybe to put myself in a more restrictive environment for a long period of time and deprive myself for this access to certain things, or how would you approach such a situation? Or what would you recommend? What would you suggest, or what would you say? Does that make sense?
Good, very good. So his question is about the practice called Pratipaksha Bhavana. So there is a sutra, Yoga Sutra, which says Vitarka Badane Pratipaksha Bhavana. I will explain that. Vitarka means perverse logic, in the sense, for example, when our intellect, when our thinking is overwhelmed by a samskara. Samskara means a tendency or a vasana, a tendency for an enjoyment, let us say. For example, in the case of brahmacharya, let us say the desire for sexual gratification. Suppose a person has taken a vow of celibacy, either temporarily or permanently. Permanently is called Naishtika Brahmacharya. Temporarily is probably a vratam, like a vow, as like they go for Sabarimala, right? So we have this Sabarimala season every few months. So when these devotees for Sabarimala, when they go, they take a vow of celibacy for 40 years, 40 days. 40 days, 48 days, one mandalam, they say. So in either context, you have a commitment. We'll put it like that. Vitarka is your mind arguing against the commitment, justifying an indulgence or justifying a habit pattern. That is vitarka. Means in opposite, that is something that takes you away from your commitment, a mode of thinking that takes you away from your commitment, that distracts you from your goal, that distracts you from your work. Wow, right? So this is called vitarka. When it is bothering you, vitarka badane, pratipaksha means to think about the advantages, the positive aspects of sticking to your commitment, and the negative aspect of going along with your habit pattern. Whatever is your mind very busy justifying, it is justifying because it is seeing some pleasure. Mind is always going towards joy. That is the good news. The mind is always going towards only happiness. A mind never goes towards pain. Even in cases of perversion, you have these people who have this sadomasochistic kind of enjoyments where they get a kind of gratification from indulging in pain. I have heard about that. So even in that case, it creates a certain kind of a tamasic vritti, a tamasic mode of mind, where you have conditioned yourself to relate with the pleasure principle through a pain sensation. Even then, psychologically, the mind wants only pleasure, only happiness, joy. So it is, so when in vitarka, when you are in a commitment, a vasana for the opposite comes. The vasana for the for an indulgence or a habit pattern is asserting itself. The habit is so strong that you are thinking about justifications for indulging. Let us say today is Shashti or Saptami, Shashti. So today is a Tithi, let us say Ekadashi, usually everybody knows Ekadashi, and you are fasting. Then you are hungry, you want to have something, maybe you feel a little weak, but you have decided to do 24 hours fasting with water, let us say. when the hunger or the desire for food is too much, your mind will create logic. Why not have just a glass of milk? Let's have some fruits. Actually, I read it is okay. It is written in Dharma Shastra that it is okay to have fruits. And you'll always have a granny or a mom who is worrying about you in your home, who's coming and telling you can have fruits. There is no dosham in fruits. There is no dosham in having some milk. Something they will say, right? So that is mind inventing logic. So I have seen people who do this fasting with tiffin. We will not have rice, but they will have. My granny used to tell a joke. Yesterday was Ekadashi. It seems one very foodie kind of a foodie woman. She said, yesterday was Ekadashi. I didn't have anything, only one pitcher of milk and a pile of dosas. ஒரு அடுக்கு தோசை ஒரு குஜா பால். So I had only a pile of dosas and a pitcher of milk. I didn't have pitcher means like this, you say sombu, like a pot kind of a pot of milk and a pile of dosas. Only that I had. I didn't have rice at all. I didn't have food at all yesterday because yesterday was the Ekadashi season. So we create justification when we watch carefully. When we are overwhelmed by an urge, especially more than a desire, an urge, we're constantly thinking about it. And that desire, the vasana, is pushing me to think in a certain way. Now here, what the Yoga Shastra says is that Pratipaksha Bhavanam means, see, mind says this is okay. So what you have to see is what are all the negative consequences of indulging in this? What is coming naturally from vasana? Mind is projecting a positive consequence of indulging in a habit. Mind is projecting a positive consequence of indulging in a habit. You're feeling good about doing it. So, Pratipaksha Bhavana is to remember what are all the negative consequences of falling into your old habit. So why did I decide to keep this commitment? Why did I take up this vow? What are all the negative consequences of breaking this vow? What are all the negative consequences of indulging in a habit that is asserting itself? So your commitment is there. You already decided the commitment, brahmacharya, it's a commitment. Now you don't question the commitment. You are just feeling tempted with something else. So you have no problem with the commitment. Suppose in some cases, if the desire is very strong, you may question the validity of the commitment itself. What is the point of all this? So what you do is, that is where your swadhyaya helps. So in Pratipaksha Bhavanam, it's very important help you get is from swadhyaya. Swadhyaya is listening to the discourses concerning to the line of commitment, listening to experts speak, and those who are already established in that, listening to them, and so listening to those discourses and to study the literature that is encouraging your commitment. For example, if you are in brahmacharya, you read about practice of brahmacharya by Swami Shivananda. You read about anything written about brahmacharya for yogis, or by something is happening with my camera, I'm sorry. Right. So you listen to the discourses and you study something about it. So Swadhyaya is studying the authoritative literature that encourages your commitment. See, the commitment is already set. You decide the commitment, right? Then Pratipaksha Bhavana is You constantly fuel things that encourage the commitment, and you constantly contemplate about the facts and details that discourage your distraction. Vitarka is distraction. You are against your commitment. So you encourage the thinking that supports the commitment, discourage the thinking that supports the distraction. This is Pratipaksha Bhavana. So how you do here, it's very important, is Swadhyaya, which is study. So if you have already done, if you have the habit of every day committing yourself to spending some time on relevant literature and bodies of knowledge, spiritual or inspiring, inspirational or spiritual or factual, wisdom based, any literature that is around this topic, that is based on right knowledge and the right tradition and all that, and that gives you the right inspiration, reading from the lives of those who have achieved success in the line of commitment, all this comes under Swadhyaya. So when you do that, you already have enough knowledge base, and the samskara, the tendency to think in line with the commitment, gets strengthened. So that has to be done parallelly. As you keep doing that, your ability to do Pratipaksha Bhavana becomes better. Let's consider this as like a muscle. I always tell, like a meditation muscle. So let us think of this like a contemplative muscle. So you will be able to command your knowledge. You will be able to invoke the right knowledge, what we call as smriti. We will be able to invoke the correct knowledge that is relevant for the right kind of Pratipaksha Bhavana in that situation. And you will be able, the right thing will come and strike. The right thought will come and strike. The right quote will come to your mind. All this is all a sign of grace. How you get this grace is by continuous sadhana and by association with those who are committed to brahmacharya, and by reading the lives of masters who have achieved success in brahmacharya and who are considered as symbols of brahmacharya, like Vivekananda, and there are these divine beings who are considered as brahmacharis, like Hanuman. So they are, some kind of an association with these will help us to, to encourage that at the subtle level, to encourage the samskara for brahmacharya. And there is also enough literature when you read about the perils of excessive indulgence. Then you see, how the person, it basically, for example, there is a beautiful literature, immediately comes. This is the result of Swadhyaya. Adi Shankaracharya in Viveka Chudamani gives an example for any sense indulgence, which includes brahmacharya also. Right? Any enjoyment obtained from a sense object. Amazing example. Any enjoyment obtained from a sense object is like the dog biting the bone. The dog keeps on biting the bone because of the stimulation. It gets the stimulation about that, whatever is the meat, but there is no meat, it's just bone. And after some time, the dog's gums get hurt. After some time, the gums of the dog get hurt and they start bleeding, and it tastes its own blood. The dog is tasting its own blood. But because it's very busy and completely focused on the bone, the dog tends to think that the blood is coming from the bone. And then it bites the bone even more to get more blood. And it is tasting its own blood. So the ananda of the Atma, in any sense object, what happens? The mind's rush gets resolved temporarily. And in that, the ananda of your true nature gets reflected. Because you are aware, you are experiencing it as joy. If you are not aware, you would experience sleep. So what you get in sleep, the equivalent of that in the waking state is pleasure. So the pleasure is like a kind of a sleep in the waking state. So every time you enjoy a pleasure, It is the state of mind that reflects the ananda of your own self, but you think that pleasure is coming, that experience is coming from the object. But what the object is doing is just helping you to neutralize that rush in the mind temporarily. And the absence of rush in the mind is experienced as pleasure, both at the organic level, at the mental level. Yeah. So there are different levels of that joy, priya, moda, pramoda, they discuss all that. So Adi Shankaracharya says that any indulgence, just all you have to do is when you want to of an object, in this case, a sexual pleasure, either self-pleasure or through somebody else, all you have to remember is you are using your body and forcing the body into a certain kind of an excited state, and then you are experiencing something. It is the same as the dog biting the bone and enjoying the blood coming from its own mouth, thinking it is coming from the bone, and it's hurting itself. So that is exactly what happens in pleasure. You are losing what is called virya. We lose our own virya to sustain an excited state, and then you think that you are getting something, but actually you are not getting something, you are only losing something. All you have to remember is the dog with the bone. Am I so stupid like the dog? Just ask yourself. Am I so stupid like the dog to blindly go behind the pleasure? That's it. You're done. And this Pratipaksha Bhavana is very useful because this Rajasic kind of logic helps very, when a desire is very strong, a Rajasic logic helps much better than Sattvic knowledge. Sattvic knowledge may not work for everybody, but a Rajasic knowledge, it is too beneath my level. You can think. For example, you are very, let's say you are from a dignified, cultured household. You grew up like that. You're very hungry. You are in a restaurant. You have ordered your dish. Your dish is coming. The guy sitting opposite to you has ordered his dish. His dish came first. And that dish is looking so good. It is smelling so nice. Would you go and take a little bit from that and eat? You will control yourself and you wait for your dish to arrive at your plate, right? Why you don't do that? Because it is too beneath yourself. Mentally, you would like to eat that, right? But it's too beneath yourself to do that. So you don't do that, right? So the same thing comes to your commitment. So when there is a vitarka or an opposite or a mode of thinking that encourages a distraction, you see how much it is beneath you to fall for it. That is one thing that can help immediately. And also you think about, you should have already thought about it. When you read this literature, you have different, like this dog with the bone, you have different examples that tell you, that immediately stop you. For example, there is about this Ekadashi fast. I read somewhere that eating on Ekadashi is like going and licking the refuse of the crow. The crow, the crow puts its refuse on you, and then you eat it. Or you have a food, and if that crow has, done its, has defecated on that, and kakabishta, it's like eating kakabishta if you eat on Ekadashi. It's not literal, it is arthavada. It is extremely discouraging doing that. How, it's how disgusting it is to do that, right? So that immediately, if you think about that, the mind stops. Because there is some kind of shraddha towards the shastra, there is some kind of a shraddha towards the tradition. So you have to invoke a discouraging, anything that discourages your distraction from a source to which you have a high degree of shraddha. You have a high degree of faith or surrender or respect. So anything from that source that will distract this distraction, you can invoke that. That will work immediately. And after that, the rush will come down and we have enough juice to think about the positives of the right for the right direction of commitment, and slowly arrive at more sattvic ways of argument, and to invoke the correct knowledge. But it is always good to start with something that is something that is like a brake, like applying brakes. When you are rushing too much, something comes, you apply a brake. Like that, something that helps you to apply a brake, some kind of a thought, like what I said, the examples I gave you. You can use that, and then once the rush is down, and then you sit and think, maybe write in a journal, put your thoughts, read that. So you have to make it a habit. The more you make it a habit, the next time it's going to get easier. As you keep doing the next time, easier and easier to overcome the force of desire. So that's how we do Pratipaksha Bhavana. Yeah. Next question. I have a message here. Right. In chat, because I'm walking. Okay. For me, it's not easy to understand English, so I'm listening to class separately. 11th April, I was teaching about bhakti. When you explained the word bhava, and you said it's a beautiful word, could you explain again about the word's meaning? Okay. Bhava is it's your mind and your emotion and your sense of self dissolving into a quality, or into whatever is the object towards which you have a bhava. Right? Bhava is a way of psychological and emotional way of being, a kind of melting into a mode. An example, it's like you are birthing yourself into a dimension, that is bhava. And bhakti, bhakti also, it comes from this, it's like you are moved. We say, in English we say, I am moved by it, right? So I felt so. For example, you see a child, and if you're a woman, generally you see a child, the motherly instinct kicks in. You feel so moved, you feel so motherly towards the child. And if you have been a mother, or if you have spent some time with a child, like mother or father, if you see any child that is struggling, you have that whole feeling comes, that bhava comes, the matru bhava, I say, the motherly feeling, that emotion. So similarly in bhakti, we say, when you understand what God means, and when you really appreciate, for example, Upanishad tells you that the Lord did tapasya and created this universe and the 5 elements. He sustains this universe with all its physical laws and everything. The Lord sustains this universe in his mind, and he's doing tapasya to sustain the universe. Sustaining the thought which sustains this universe, in which you and I are able to live. So, what is the level of commitment? What is the level of unconditional love? We do all kinds of nonsense, and there is no judging. Okay, you are polluting the planet too. So I will suspend oxygen. I will suspend oxygen for a few days. No. If you see everything in nature, it is just the laws, and you're allowed to just live it. No? And you're allowed to carve your own destiny. It is tremendous, unimaginable. No, it is pure love that makes life possible. If you think about that, something melts in you, right? So that is bhava. So in bhakti, when you understand at the emotional level, when you understand what actually God means for you, the most natural movement, in the most natural movement towards the idea of God is bhava. Your most natural emotional movement towards the idea of God. That is your bhakti bhava. Bhakti means bhaja, to seek. When you seek to unite, when you seek to associate with the idea of God, that is bhakti. And in that, you get a certain natural flow of emotion. That is, you get a certain way of being in relationship with the object towards which you have bhava. You get to feel a way of being towards whatever is the idea of God that you are entertaining. Okay, so that is your bhava in your bhakti. So, for example, in Bhakti Sutra, in the Bhakti literature, they talk about relating to God as a friend, relating to master, servant, relating to God as a teacher and disciple, right? Relating to God as a lover, as your as your love, and as your beloved, and like that we have, and relating to God as the father, relating to the divine as the mother. There, Shaktam is about you relate to the Lord, to the supreme being, the Ishvara Tattva, as your mother. Or there is in the Shakta also there are different bhavas. You relate to the goddess as child, mother child, or as you can treat the goddess as your wife, as your lover. You can treat the goddess as your child. Like that, you have different Vatsalya bhava, where Lord Krishna's mother Yashoda had a Vatsalya bhava towards Lord Krishna. So her bhakti or the devotion or the love for Lord Krishna was as a mother and child. For her, God is her child. So there are women who emotionally treat Lord Rama as their child. For example, this Rama temple in Ayodhya, the Rama is called Rama. Lala means young boy. So all the women, when they go there, they treat him like their own child. That motherly love they invoke. Why we do that is because a natural way of being, it gets all your emotional energy. You are able to invoke all the energy at the emotional level and direct it towards God. So when you use the emotional force, the bhava allows you to use your emotional energy in the flow of mind towards God. So there is a more integral way of, there is more integral and a complete way of orienting yourself towards self. So that is why bhava is very important in bhakti. So bhava means a way of being, a personal way of being towards the object towards which you have the bhava is flowing, the emotion is flowing. Bhava is a way of being. I will put it like that. Any other questions? Laws.
இல்ல போன தடவை இந்த டவுட் வந்திருந்தது. நேச்சுரல் லாஸ் என்ன லாஸ் அப்படின்னு ஒரு கேள்வி.
law, LAW.
லாஸ்னா LAWS LOSS இல்ல அப்படிங்கிறது.
The natural laws, I mean the dharma of the
இல்ல அது என்னமோ நேச்சுரல் லாஸ்னா என்ன லாஸ் அப்படின்னு ஒரு கேள்வி வந்தது. கொஞ்சம் காமெடி ஆயிடுச்சதுனால அந்த LOWS ஒரு ரெஃபரன்ஸ் போட்டு அவ்வளவுதான். சாரி.
The law. Okay. So that's about.
ஏன்னா அது அந்த சென்டென்ஸ் எப்படி இருந்ததுன்னா, ஒன் ஷுட் கோ வித் நேச்சுரல் லாஸ்னா வாட் லாஸ் அப்படின்னு என்கிட்ட கேள்வி, என்ன லாஸ் அப்படி சொல்றேன்.
Not the laws, the laws. Yeah, pronunciation. Not laws as nashta, is the law as the rule.
You know how European understand. So
yeah, no. And on top of that, with Indian pronunciation,
English for the European is different. So
right. So any other questions? Good.
In the one question for me,
yes.
So the attitude, like Pratipaksha Bhavana, or what we were saying, the emotion, feeling, in that what is the bhava of student? How it is like you said, the lover or the matru bhava.
Yeah.
So in that, what about the bhava of student? Like how do we?
Yeah, so you treat the Lord as your teacher, for sure. Sadashiva Samarambham, the teacher's tradition starts with the Lord. I don't know if there is any Shishya Bhava, Guru Shishya Bhava.
Okay.
In Sanskrit, it's just a Sanskrit word.
Yeah. Thank you.
This is this video keeps going every few seconds.
Yes, couple of seconds, but it's fine. Sometimes the volume also went couple of seconds down, but then it.
I don't know why it does that. When this hardware acceleration video optics quality. I don't know how to do that. I tried many times and I don't understand how this works. It doesn't matter. So please bear with me when it goes, I'll come back. Keep on touching it. Yeah. Right. So I was thinking of I think the questions are done for today. So I was thinking of discussing about the 3 levels of yoga. So whatever Nishta we are talking about, whatever commitment, it all finally boils down to what level of discipline of the mind is suitable for whom. This we can take from the yoga literature, from the Patanjali Yoga Sutra. It is discussing 3 levels of yoga. First, for those with predominantly sattvic mind, see, yoga is a state of mind, a state where you are in absolute concentration or in absolute withdrawal from all the objects. Ekagrata, Nirodha, one of these. This is yoga. So, if you are already of a predominant sattvic temperament, it is possible to apply the mind directly in meditation. You will be able to, you are capable of contemplation directly. Your body is cooperating, everything, so you can directly apply the mind and you can arrive at samadhi or absolute steady contemplation. You can arrive at it without any other accessories, without having to do pranayama, without having to, chant and get, all. There's no struggle at all. The mind is spontaneously able to contemplate without distraction on whatever is the chosen object of meditation. So that is the most sattvic, naturally sattvic mind can do that. Then he tells about what kind of contemplation will give you what result and all. And what are the different options, contemplation options we have, what are the different levels of contemplation, and all that goes in the yoga literature, the first chapter. Then you try that. Then you see, okay, it's not enough. I need to somehow, I need to do a little bit more in order to allow my mind to be available for the practice, for the spiritual practice. So I am, let me say like this, my spirit is caught a little more in the affairs of life, right? My spirit, in the sense, my mind, my sense of self is already, I have to extract my sense of self from this world. It's not easy, and the habit patterns are a little stronger. The rajas is a little more. So I need a supporting lifestyle that will make my contemplation easy. So that is called Kriya Yoga. So I'm not able to do straight contemplation. I have to make my system cooperate because system is a little locked. So I need a little bit of training, then it'll be easy for me to contemplate. So that is called Kriya Yoga, where he says some kind of austerities, pranayama, etc. Some there's some kind of challenging your limits, like fasting and putting yourself in some disciplining context. These are all called tapasya, right? Austerity. A kind of an austere lifestyle that is intelligently designed for your constitution. Then study that aligns your thinking with the teaching, with the true spiritual knowledge. You are aligning your thinking with the true spiritual knowledge that is revealed and sustained by the tradition of the rishis. Swadhyaya, it's called. Swadhyaya. Then you cultivate this bhakti or devotion towards the Lord, and you make the mind love God more than you love your little self. You are habituating the mind to appreciate God and give more importance to God more than the importance you give yourself. Yourself here means your individuality, your ego. So God is more important than my ego. That is Ishvara Pranidhana. I'm putting it in a very simple way. It has different levels. It has different levels of perfection, sophistication. It has different approaches, and all that. But in essence, it is basically the idea of God, the truth or the reality called God, which I am referring to as Ishvara. Ishvara is more important than me. Ishvara is more important than me and my goals and my desires. It is not for Ishvara's sake. It is for my sake, actually. In the sense, you can say it's for Ishvara's sake because Ishvara represents the truth. Ishvara represents the ultimate end of all that I want to achieve. That I meditate, I become that. So, Ishvara gets more importance than me and my little concerns, everyday concerns. In my very thinking, my whole thinking is tuned towards being subservient to Ishvara. My whole thinking process and my sense of ego orientation, my individuality, my personality, everything is tuned to love and adore Ishvara. So that is called Ishvara Pranidhana. And anything that I get, I don't own up the achievements. Basically, I am letting go of my possessiveness. I am letting go of my wanting to enjoy the results of action. So I am becoming more oriented towards dharma than towards artha and kama. So that is the whole point of Ishvara Pranidhana is I am orienting myself more towards, I'm learning to love reality more than I love my gratification. Reality is more important than gratification. This is one aspect of Ishvara Pranidhana, where whatever I enjoy, I understand that there are huge, it's an entire topic by itself. I can talk about Ishvara Pranidhana for days. So in this context, what we are telling you, the second level of yoga has three things. He says, okay, you are not fully sattvic, so you need to somehow rein in the rajas, rein in REIN, REIGN. Rein in the rajas in the sense you need to cultivate the mind a little bit. Some more cultivation is required. So for that person, this Kriya Yoga is told for the person who already has Shraddha, who already has the the right lifestyle options and everything around. So they are committed to a lifestyle. Say Swadhyaya, Tapasya, Ishvara Pranidhana. So you commit to these three things, and eventually it will take care of, it will give the space that is required for contemplation. Gradually you will be able to. So this is for moderately Rajasic and predominantly Sattvic people. This is enough. Tapas, Swadhyaya, and Ishvara Pranidhana. Austerity, study of the scriptures and the thinking in line with them, and devotion to the Lord. This is enough. And this will ensure that you will be able to obtain success in Samadhi, in contemplation. Right? and your commitment of the intellect towards the truth, that will be taken care of. Right? Now, this also I am not able to do. You know, I am in a very, I am stuck on so many levels. I am stuck with my, I'm totally, no matter where you are, no matter how fallen you are, you can be taken out of that samsara. The snare of samsara, the person can be taken out of the snare of samsara and brought to the perfection of yoga. No matter where you are, wherever you are at that level, there is sadhana available. So if you are stuck up in so many levels, then that for the person for whom this tapaswadhyaya ishvara pranidhana alone is not enough, this is the second level, the kriya yoga is not enough for them. The next option is ashtanga yoga, where he says the yama, niyamas, the 5 yamas, the niyamas, and then the asana, hatha yoga, the asana, practice of asana, pranayama. So you are coming from outside, and you are cultivating the body, and from the body you are freeing the prana, and after freeing the prana, you are aligning your vital force, the prana, your life force, with your mind, and then the prana and the mind you are aligning with your intellect, and then the and the prana, mind, body, prana, mind, intellect, when everything is together, that you are applying for contemplation. So that is the path of Ashtanga Yoga, where yama, the don'ts, the restrictions, niyama, the observances. Yama is, for example, non-violence, speaking the truth, to self, non-indulgence, not desiring, non-possessiveness, and not receiving gifts from others, and not desiring what belongs to others, not stealing. All this comes under the don'ts. Right? Why should you can say, no, I'm not stealing anybody's things. Why? Because you say these are very important vows, because these are the strongest expressions of your helplessness with respect to the ego. My helplessness with respect to the ego shows as giving more importance for my gratification over the reality. My gratification is more important than the rule. My gratification is more important than reality. What I feel is more important than what is true. So I have a tendency to distort the reality. I speak lies in order to get my things done. I steal what belongs to others. These are all signs of completely law. It doesn't take much time. It doesn't take much time. If you keep on indulging, if you see a person without any second thought, they go because I can. It's like this wild animals. The person says, because I can, I am more powerful. I will grab what is yours, and you can't do anything about it. Like this, how this Mongol and Huns, they came and destroyed a lot of civilizations, and even today it's happening in many cultures. Right? So it's called, we say our historical records talk about the Mlecha tribes who are coming and attacking the country. So here we say the barbarians, we say. So they come and say, because I can, I will grab what is yours. Why does this person do that? How did this soul, how did this mind, how did this jiva, this individual end up in a life where he got a mind like this? Because of encouraging adharma for many, many janmas, for many, many lives, life after life after life. This individual has been encouraging gratification, giving more importance for personal gratification over what is right, what is ethically correct. So I am giving more importance for my gratification over and above the ethical appropriateness in a situation. It doesn't take much time before I become a complete barbarian, before I become an aggressor, before I become what we call a demonic or an evil person. Right? So no matter how you are, still Ashtanga Yoga can take you out, no matter at what level. All you have to do is, even the worst of the dacoits, even the worst of the criminals has a moment of reflection. He says, why my life I am like this? He has a soft corner when he sees a good man. Even the worst, the most cruel thief or a dacoit or a murderer will say, okay, you get lost, get out of my sight before I change my mind. Something moves in him. He feels that he should not hurt this. There are these moments, no? The only difference between a good man and a completely gone case is that a good man has maximum number of moments where the person is naturally ethical, the thinking is ethical, a few moments where it tends to fall. But a demonic person, what we call as an evil person or a bad person in common parlance, has more moments of personal compulsion, compromising ethics, and a few moments of conscience, a few moments of ethical thinking, just like a flash coming here and there. But mostly this person is unethical, right? So this temperament, what we call as Asuri Sampat, that is the demonic temperament. The other one is the Daivi Sampat or a divine temperament. A person with a divine temperament is born, a person with a demonic temperament is born. It's born, it's inborn nature. Why they're born like that? It's because of the samskara carried from past life. So we analyze how our thinking, etc., according to the framework, the standard given by the Shastra. You have to take the standard. It is not relative. What is right for you may not be right for me. This does not apply for dharma. Dharma is universal. It is something that is. It's like the laws of physics. You discover what is dharma in a given context. Observation, through study, through reflection, through objectivity, you discover what is dharma in a context, right? So it's knowledge, it's given, it's something to be understood. So it's not based on my likes and dislikes. So in a context, it's something like there are some absolutes. There are some absolutes in dharma, like non-violence, truth, space for another person to be, not coveting what belongs to another person. These are all absolutes. And not becoming helpless with respect to sense enjoyments, having some level of self-control, having the power to restrain yourself. Brahmacharya is essentially that. Brahmacharya pratishtayam virya labha. By being established in Brahmacharya, a person gains virya. Virya means it's like the personal power, magnetism, where you are able to have a kind of mastery over your senses and mind, and it's a kind of presence. You have a presence where others will feel like listening to you. That is not the goal of Brahmacharya. What if you teach something, it bears fruit, they say. A person with Brahmacharya, whatever the person teaches, the other person will feel like following. It's called virya. It's something like a simple thing. Let us say a person has dedicated themselves to a very disciplined lifestyle, at least with respect to a specific one kind of a job. Right? So this person has lived that for 30 years, 40 years, a routine. So this person gathers a certain kind of authenticity and a certain kind of power with respect to that job. You say it's a very experienced person, a kind of a wisdom that, so when a person speaks one word from that huge experience-based, deep understanding of the domain of knowledge, where he has dedicated himself for 30, 40 years, and then he tells, it has an impact, right? So what they call as experts speak, right? So when somebody is an expert, we say somebody has really, put some life into something. So there is life in their words when they talk about that. So that is virya. So in Brahmacharya, it's like a general virya. You get that power, personal power, that is helpful for our own sadhana. So it is important to be together as a person. That Brahmacharya gives me the ability to be together as a person. the command over my unconscious mind, the command over my urges, the command over my faculties that come from brahmacharya. Okay. So these are all absolute values, these are all universal values that everybody desires. So I commit for that. Yama. So I don't do things that disturb those things that we all value universally. We all value universally truth. So I don't speak lies that disturbs this commitment to the value of truth. Right. This is plugging the holes in the bucket, yama. Then you have niyama, observances, cleanliness, contentment, which you deliberately practice. You may not feel like doing it. There may not be a natural urge, but you keep on raising your standard with respect to those disciplines. You keep on raising your commitment to contentment. You keep on raising your commitment towards cleanliness. Then you keep on raising your ability to be austere. And you keep yourself committed to do the study. In this niyama comes what we said before. Tapas, swadhyaya, the austerity, study, and devotion to the Lord comes as one of the three observances. That alone is enough if you are pure enough. But all the other, which means all the other are taken care. You will automatically be truthful. For a person whom the second level of yoga is enough, that person will naturally be devoted to truth. That person will naturally be non-possessive, etc. So if you are not that, then you have Ashtanga Yoga, where you have the don'ts, you practice you make sure that you don't lie, you don't steal and all that, the yamas. And then you practice the observances, you deliberately maintain as high levels of purity, external purity and internal purity. You deliberately practice contentment, learning to be contented with what you have, because it's not going to come naturally. There is always, one can always have more. There's no end to owning objects. It's, if you read Taittiriya Upanishad, the level of ownership keeps on increasing. In the Anandavalli, you see, there is no end for Vishaya Ananda. There is no end for ownership over things. You can keep on increasing your wealth. You can keep on increasing your connections. You can keep on increasing your power. There's no end to it. So you learn to practice contentment deliberately. And what you get out of contentment, you get extraordinary happiness. You get an extraordinary kind of peace of mind and a pleasant disposition. It comes from contentment. So Patanjali's sage Patanjali in Yoga Sutra says what is the benefit of each yama and what is the benefit of each niyama. So that motivates us. Yeah. And you have then you have austerity, study, devotion to the Lord, all that you practice. So the devotion to the Lord here is more in terms of ritualistic worship and commitment, and learning to habituate your lifestyle around God. The concept of God represented to you by your chosen form of your personal deity. So you develop a lifestyle around your personal deity, and you develop your thinking around it. You make your personal deity the center of your life, something like that, right? So that is Ishvara Pranidhana. So with all that, and then having this lifestyle in place, having your commitments in place, all these ethical commitments and all this personal discipline and everything in place, you practice Ashtanga Yoga, you practice the asanas, then you learn to sit in meditation for, you must achieve what is called asana siddhi. 90 minutes, I must be able to stay in one posture without any discomfort. When I do that, I get asana siddhi. And then I'm ready for practicing pranayama. Again, gradually he takes it step by step, and then the person is ready for pure contemplation. So this is Ashtanga Yoga. In 3 levels, he says how one oneself, right? So based on, so this, what does this mean? This means when we take to a spiritual life, we have to accept what are our limitations, what are my personal limitations. I will have to accept them. And based on my personal limitations, I have to design my commitments, I have to design my practice and my level of commitment in every kind of sphere of my life, in each sphere of my life, in each aspect of my life. What should be my level of commitment, and how do I manifest that kind of commitment in that aspect of my life in order to be available, in order to realize the spiritual truths, in order to spiritualize my life, and in order to be qualified to realize my own nature as the pure spirit. So each one can self-analyze and maybe discuss, and based on that, completely accept where I am. And there is always hope. No matter which level we are, there is always hope in the Shastra. The Shastra shows you the way. No matter where you are, the spiritual, the body of spiritual literature that we have has a solution for taking a person out of samsara and putting them in the path to the freedom from which there is no return. Having attained, there is no coming back. That kind of irreversible freedom, irreversible happiness, that eternal freedom is possible for each one of us. And all we have to do is to understand where we are, and adopt the right level of disciplines and study and the spiritual support system that is relevant for my level. So that's how you go about it. And the example is given in Yoga Sutra, where he talks about 3 levels of yogic practice that is relevant for different levels of Uttama, Madhyama, Adhama, we say. The highest, the medium, and the lowest level of Adhikari. The lowest in the sense, for one whom it is the most difficult. Whoever finds it the most difficult, you have a big system that helps them. You find it slightly difficult, okay, this much is enough, you can manage with this. This is enough, you don't have to do everything. Because the point is not being busy doing a lot of yogic stuff. The point is to use the tool. These are all tools, the spiritual exercises and the disciplines. These are all tools for me to achieve my goal, which is moksha, liberation, or self-realization, or whatever you want to call it. So the tools are used according to my need. And based on my understanding of my need, it is enough to use the right kind of tools, probably with the guidance of a teacher. So with this, I will conclude my class today. And 7.5, maybe one question, if there is something in there, I will entertain. A quick question, otherwise I will close the class.
Okay, so namaste. One question, as you said just now, Uttama, Madhyama, Adhama. So who is with Adhama, then what to do? Like,
Adhama is Ashtanga Yoga. In this context, as I was telling, the Uttama is Samadhi Pada deals with the Uttama Adhikari. Sadhana Pada Kriya Yoga deals with the Madhyama Adhikari, and Ashtanga Yoga deals with the Adhama Adhikari.
Okay, Adhama is okay, Ashtanga Yoga. Got it, understood.
Yama, Niyama, and everything. So he has to take care of every little aspect deliberately.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, so we finish the class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudyate Purnasya Purnamadaja Purnameva Vatishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shanti.
Nandri.